board meeting of the month. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. If you have a cell phone, if you wouldn't mind turning it on vibrate or off so as not to interrupt the meeting. And a reminder to the board to speak into the microphone. All supervisors are present, in addition to the clerk administrator, the treasurer, and office assistant. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Gaz, seconded by Forkert. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We have the minutes of the special board meeting of the 23rd. Are there any additions, corrections to those? If not, I'll move their approval as presented.
Second.
Motion by Lowry, seconded by Gaz. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. And then the second December board meeting of the 18th of December. Are there any additions or corrections?
I move to be approved.
I'll second. Motion by Farber, seconded by Lowry. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. All right, next is the treasurer's report. Janet?
For the end of the year, the municipal checking account began with a balance of $23,887.05. That was transferred into checking to bring that account to zero for the year. Then the tax deposits, $1,592,559.70. Interest posted bringing that account balance to $1,593,577.41. On money market account, we began with a balance of $210,034.33. Interest posted and brought that balance to $210,071.16. In our checking account, we began with $305,006.06. Transfers and deposits, FICA, state withholding. There was one voided paycheck. Payroll and disbursements ended with a balance in that account of $265,449.25. Yes, Niagara Escarpment Fund, we closed that out and transferred that money to GODC, and for the end of December, bringing that account to zero. Utility District, $236,947.93. And on North Shore Money Market account, got 2 transfers of interest, bringing that account to $515.82. With a total in all town accounts at the end of December of $2,305,561.57.
Are there any questions? Are you getting the information from the utility district now
On a monthly
on a
basis.
monthly basis?
Yes.
I'll move to approve the treasurer's report.
Second.
A motion by Gaz, seconded by Farber. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Public input is next. This is the opportunity for anybody in the audience to address the board on any given subject, and also to address the board on any of the agendized subjects. Before we get to that, I would like to make a comment on the lawsuit that the town brought against the Board of Adjustment in relation to the zip line. I would assume everybody knows now that Judge Ehlers ruled in favor of the defendant in that case. It was well, let me back this up. The board has been chastised, I guess is the word for it, and criticized for doing that. Under our judicial system, if a party feels that they have been wronged, or if something has gone wrong, I guess, in this sense, they have, in our judicial system, the right, and in the case of the board, it is our duty, I think, to protect the laws of not only Liberty Grove, but the state and the nation, and we take that oath, and we take the oath of office. The board felt that there was a different way to have the zip line, if you will, approved and so forth, and the defendants took it to the Board of Adjustment, and at that point, the board decided it was appropriate because of our ordinance, the way we interpreted the ordinance, the way the Plan Commission interpreted the ordinance, and also the way the Attorney Mission interpreted the ordinance, that we should proceed with the lawsuit. I think while we may not agree with the decision, we're going to accept the decision. That is our judicial way. The one thing I would like to point out and go back and stress again is that we had, one, the right, but more importantly, we had the duty to file that lawsuit. And I know that the defendants felt that we were picking on them and so forth. That was not the case, unfortunately, that they felt that. But the issue, I think, is over, and I think it's time to move on. Okay, Peter.
Who are the defendants? Wasn't it the Board of Adjustment?
It was the Board of Adjustment. However, the Wagon Trail got involved because they were part of that. So they were part of it by default. I guess they ended up being part of that. So Lou can address it a little bit better than I can. Okay, anybody want to make a general comment? John? You want, please step to the stand.
I'm John Ludwigson, Ellison Bay. First, I'd just like to say that I really do appreciate the board and all the effort that you have done. I know this has been, the last couple of years have been really kind of difficult, to say the least. So I do appreciate what you guys have done. Recently, whether it be in the paper or at meetings, you know, I think citizens have been chastised about not attending meetings, which kind of shows tonight. But I don't know if that's necessarily true when it comes to like the road issues. I mean, there's been a lot of communication. It may not always be good, and the outcomes may not have always been what people wanted. You spent a lot of time with Heritage Roads. I mean, and I believe it was voted 5-1 to proceed with the Heritage Roads. Well, now it's to the Highway Committee, which I think is going to be kind of non-existent, basically. But again, back to our responsibility as citizens should be to attend meetings, and I think you'll find out in the future that the budget meetings is what you were really talking about, people not attending. So we do have a responsibility to you as citizens, but I think you also have responsibility to us to maybe communicate a little bit better why you feel we should be passing certain resolutions. I mean, in November that night, with over almost 200 people here, you know, you're not going to get 200 people at a budget meeting. So how are we going to be educated on what is important, why you wanted a tax levy increase? We spent, or you spent our taxpayers' money of over $1,000 on a fancy questionnaire about recycling. You probably could have spent a quarter of that amount sending out a letter explaining why we should vote for these certain issues. And it should come from the board because you are the ones who approved the budget. So I think simply doing that could have helped avoid a lot of the stuff that happened that night. And I think also between the second vote, which was pretty well overwhelmingly passed, and the third vote, well, there's only two members, John and Bud. If you would have simply said, the budget that you just passed in vote number 2 includes all the highway money, I believe that that would have passed very easily. I don't think people really understood that third vote, that the money in the third vote was already in the second budget. And I think some board members did not even really understand that. So I think communication should be a little more vital and maybe address some of these situations, especially next year with the budget. I also think that the board should maybe look over contracts, bids, a little bit more instead of maybe just rubber stamping them. And I think everyone on the board understands where I'm coming from. I mean, I was asked by the highway chairman what my thoughts on Isle View was, and I said it was a great road. My only question is why was the causeway 18 or 20 feet when it was supposed to be 18 feet? So everything, this initially was between Mike and I. He decided to bring it to the board. So I had to basically reaffirm what my thoughts were and what I, after visiting a lot of the meetings, where this came, how the decision got there. I do still believe your intentions were to make it 18 feet. Somehow it didn't get that way for whatever reason. But again, simply reviewing contracts, bids, may have prevented that. Maybe not. Maybe that's the way you wanted it. But that's not how it was presented at most of the board meetings. So I would hope that that would be also maybe taken into consideration the next year. The other thing is minutes. I mean, sometimes I don't think the minutes really reflect what happens at the meetings all the time. And again, my situation, I had to go back to the minutes that were on the audio tape, word for word, in order to justify what I was accused of not saying the right thing. Well, it was not in the minutes, the response to why that was a 18-foot road at the highway committee meeting. There was a response given, but it was never in the minutes. So again, you understand where I'm coming from on that. And that's basically all I would like to say.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else, general comment? Peter?
Peter Sauer, Ellison Bay. The Sister Bay Utility Committee discussed the Larson property funds that were received from the sale of that. And they have placed it in a special fund to be used for whatever action is necessary for sludge disposal in the future. There have been discussions with Sturgeon Bay, who takes our sludge now and processes it, sells it as a type or a Class A fertilizer, and whatever they make from it, they retain. But they will not sign a contract with us that in the future they will always take that from us. And there have been times when they have been overloaded and have said we have to delay sending anything down to them because they don't have the ability to accept it at that point. So it's possible in the future, as we see changes coming in the law and that we may have much more sludge being developed in the future, and the Utility Committee decided to ask Lee and Associates to do a study and advise us what ways that we might have to take care of that. There are two obvious ways, which is spreading it on the land or processing it ourselves. And so that they have a study going on. About $4,800 is what they're going to spend, which will be coming out of that fund. So this is just to update the board that those funds have been set aside because that land was originally for sludge land spreading that is going to be used for that purpose, and it's reserved for that only. So, are there any questions on that? Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else, general comments? Gary?
Can I make it from here?
Sure.
I guess what I would like to do is ask Bud to pass on to the maintenance crew the kudos for the great job they took in taking care of that 12 inches of snow we just got. You know, they were up at 4:30 in the morning, and I know it took a long time for some of the roads to get clear, but they did a real excellent job, and I think they deserve some congratulations on that.
Okay. Anybody want to comment on any of the agenda items? Yes, Mike? You? 10, right? Two. Yep. 8. John, 8. Anybody else? Okay, then we'll go on to number 7, consider adoption of the civility resolution. We had a presentation at the board meeting in December. This is something that has been presented to a number of the municipalities in the county. We decided that we would bring this to the board tonight for the adoption of the resolution. That being the case, I move that we adopt resolution 1-14, which is a resolution to accept the 9 tools of civility. Whereas the residents of the town of Liberty Grove place a high value on respect and civility in their lives, and they understand that these characteristics are essential to any healthy community. And whereas the town board of the town of Liberty Grove supports opportunities for civil discourse and discussion in the community, and whereas the town board of the town of Liberty Grove sometimes addresses controversial issues and wants to ensure civil behavior even in discussion of issues which people feel passionate about. And whereas the town board of the town of Liberty Grove understands that an atmosphere of civility and respect can have a positive effect on the proceedings, on the quality of debate, and on the practice of democracy itself. Now therefore be it resolved by the town board of the town of Liberty Grove in Door County, Wisconsin, that we recognize the 9 tools of civility that will provide increased opportunities for civil discourse in order to find positive resolutions to the issues that face our town. These tools include, number 1, pay attention, number 2, listen, number 3, be inclusive, number 4, don't gossip, number 5, show respect, number 7, apologize, number 8, give constructive criticism, number 9, take responsibility. Be it further resolved that the town board of Liberty Grove shall promote the use and adherence of these tools in conducting its business.
You forgot 6.
I'm sorry?
Number 6.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, that was not be agreeable. Considering what's going on, that would be the logical one to skip. I'm sorry. That was not done on purpose. So. All right, adopted a properly noticed meeting of the town board at the town of Liberty Grove this 15th day of January 2014. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Fortune. Discussion.
The only discussion I have is that I had a phone call from at least one resident that had a concern that just wanted to make sure that the board's adopting this resolution would not in any way change the format of board meetings. The resident's concern was that this could be possibly interpreted mistakenly to mean that now the board would be open to discussion of all business by all present, like at a annual town meeting. And I just want to bring that out to the board. I don't think that's the case, but I wanted it to be said.
Anybody else? Frank?
Bud, maybe you could clarify the rules under which the town meetings meet. We do have an ordinance. We have to follow state rules. This is something where it's not a free-for-all. It's definitely that way, and I think previous boards have been very, very strict. And I think this board, at least 4.5 years I've been on it, has been more relaxed, and I think there's been a good exchange. But is there any way of, Bud, for you to summarize what state statutes and what our own ordinances set forth?
As far as board meetings,
Yeah,
well, we have the Big Grove Ordinance 5-12, the rules for deliberation, parliamentary procedure, and duties, which goes through several pages of explanation and sets up parameters for interaction from the citizen. According to I don't know if it's statutes, but it's standard procedure practice in the state that a board meeting, town board does not have to have input from the citizens. It's totally a courtesy that's extended. So, but the board, prior when these were adopted, extended that courtesy and think that public input is very important. So it goes through here and gives, and we can certainly send out copies to it to anybody that wants one. And it sets time limits which are changeable by the chairman at the meeting if people want to talk longer than the 3 minutes or whatever. And the difference between this and the town meeting is a meeting of the electors. The annual meeting, any subject can be discussed by the electors. A special town meeting is limited to the topics on the agenda and are specific to that. So that's basically the nuts and bolts of your 3 types of meetings of the board and the citizens of the town.
When there's a public input, even on a general topic as opposed to a specific agenda item, is that a proper forum for a question to be asked and to have an answer requested right then and there? Because, in other words, I've seen now, both in the public seats and here now, questions saying, well, I'd like to know what this is about. And is the public input a proper forum for that direct kind of question that requires an answer immediately?
If the board feels that they have a proper answer to give, they certainly can do it. Very limited discussion can take place. But if it morphs into something that's more detailed and more people want to talk about it, then you need to put it on the future agenda because now you're getting into details that the general public out there would not know about, and it needs to be posted on an agenda so these other people out there know what's being talked about. Otherwise, if it doesn't come up again and something happens because of this discussion, well, people are going to say, well, that wasn't on an agenda, and now they did something or are leaning some way that I wanted to talk about. So that's you got to. The town association and the attorney general don't discourage a little back and forth between the citizens, but it has to be there has to be a limit to it.
Frank?
the only thing I carry in my briefcase when it comes to every committee and meeting, this ordinance 908. And I think the more people that come to our meeting that have this ordinance and understand deliberation, parliamentary procedure, and duties, I think it would help.
Yeah, the updated version on that is 512, and Frank alluded to what 512 did. The other one said 3 minutes, that's it, for public input for anybody. We changed that to allow the board and the chair, if somebody wishes to speak longer, that's allowable. So there was a little tweaking in that. And you're right, I think that generally speaking, over the last few years, things have loosened up a little bit. But to Lou's point, public input is not here for a debate between the board and those in attendance. It's not structured for that. A town board meeting is a meeting to do the business of the town. And public input obviously is always appreciated. And as Bud says, if it gets into an issue that needs to be put on a future agenda, I believe that's been done on a regular basis. I don't think anybody's been denied that. So. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any comments on the resolution? All right. All in favor? Well, let's roll call, please.
Borkert,
Aye.
Glatzos,
Aye.
Goss,
Aye.
Farber,
Aye.
Lowry.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
I would like to suggest that we get a hold of the civility group and ask them if they would like to come and do a presentation for the general public and, for the citizens. Because I think it's, what they presented I thought was very interesting, and I think we need to share that knowledge with the community. There weren't a great deal of people here that night, so I wonder if that would be acceptable to the board. Okay. And one other little caveat here, I don't think the board in any way, by the adoption of the resolution, feels that they have not been civil in the course of their proceedings. So I will speak for the board for that one. So. Okay, going on to number 8. Consider request for rustic road nomination, Islesview Road.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could you please define for me the difference between rustic road and heritage road and what this will do as far as our maintenance policy?
I'll turn that up. A rustic road is a state program,
Okay.
and the heritage road is strictly local. Bud's probably a little bit better versed in, I'm not sure. My remembrance of when we had Mr. Federley here is that a rustic road, basically, the maintenance on a rustic road goes on the same as you normally would have.
But it's a state road.
It becomes a state recognized road. It is not a state road. It's still, in the case of Liberty Grove, would still be a Liberty Grove road. It has some significant characteristic about it. It can be, off the top of my head, it can be scenic. In the case of Islesview, I believe that Mr. Federley said that the little park at the end, because of the access to the water, makes it a good candidate for a rustic road. You want to add to any of that?
Well, the Heritage Road program has got, it kind of sets up a policy basically of being a little more careful on Heritage Road than you would on a normal road. Not that we're not careful anyway, but I guess if it's a Heritage Road, you would look at your Heritage Road policy for the town and to see how that would apply with maintenance and any improvements. With the rustic road, the improvements and major improvements would precede being adopted as a heritage road because you go through the process, and if there's a major project designed for a heritage road, for that road, that committee waits until that project is done to make sure that they know what they're getting. Because if they would make it a rustic road and all of a sudden the town puts a 4-lane highway down there, well, now what's a little different characteristic? So that I guess with the heritage road, it would be theoretically possible to do a little more aggressive project, but basically you do it with a lot of care, as we've done in the past with a couple of roads that look like they would be candidates for a heritage road, in narrowing the clear zone and not making it as wide as we could have.
And there is a rustic roads program within the state, and it is publicized. So, as part of the state publicizing places to go and so forth in the state.
I do know that the motorcycle groups receive a pin for every rustic road that they go on. And some of them are pretty adamant about collecting pins, so.
This would be publicized by the state
Yeah.
if it could be,
Right.
Do they also supply the signage, the state?
There is signage on
No,
there.
There's a rustic road
one sign.
designated sign.
like the one in Bailey.
Yeah. Okay, we have a number of people that would like to speak on this. Mike, I have you down first.
Mike Barkey, Ellison Bay. I was kind of surprised to see this agenda item on tonight's agenda. I'm a member of the Highway Committee, have been for probably close to 2 years. I can't remember the last time we talked about Isleview Road as being a rustic road, and it seems to kind of come out of the blue, so it really surprised me when I saw this. So I guess in the course of our discussion, I'd be very interested in learning where the request came from. And I'd also like to know why it's on the agenda at this point in time as opposed to in the summer. It seems kind of a strange time since it hasn't been discussed for a while. And when you look at the application process for a rustic road, there are 3 different ways that you can request a road to become a rustic road. And one is that there are, I think, at least 6 citizens within the municipality that are in favor of the rustic road. Another one is that the majority of the residents along the road are in favor of it. And then I think a third way is that the municipality itself can vote and request to have a rustic road. I remember during the discussion when we were talking about rustic road versus heritage road, there were a lot of people, not a lot, but a number of people, that were opposed to a rustic road. And as Gary has pointed out, and John, you've done the same thing, that there are frequently advertising of the road. It brings a lot more traffic and people, probably some trash and other kinds of things. And motorcyclists, and I ride a motorcycle, are noisy, and I'm not so sure residents along the road would like that. And so I'd be very curious in our discussion about the rustic road status for Isleview Road, that people have considered the kinds of ramifications, and well, I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Okay. The request came from Janet Johnson. Carl?
Yes, Carl Zopp, Gills Rock, and Happy New Year, everybody. Like Mike, I am rather befuddled by the timing of this, because a lot of us who didn't want the massive cutting of trees along this road, and we considered it destruction even worse, in my way, more egregious than what was done on Garrett Bay Road. And now it appears to me and others that this is like a sop that you're throwing at us. It's like, Isleview Road has lost its virginity, but we're going to, give you your virginity back and, give you a feel-good thing about calling this a rustic road. The whole idea of Heritage Road was to keep local control over the roads that we want to appeal to tourists and residents alike, so that people take pride in the appearance of this village and its rural character. And I don't think that's been done in the case of Isleview Road, and I'm sorry, I don't understand the timing of this, I don't understand the rationale for it, and I don't understand also why the Heritage Road program has been put in a box somewhere and this thing is suddenly resurrected.
John?
since I would be I am living on what would be this rustic road, I just wonder what benefit is going to be gained by making this a rustic road. I mean, I could ask Janet, because I don't know any other citizen who lives on the road at this point, once the road has already been done, why would we want to make this a rustic road? We tried to get a rustic road. I was probably one of the 2 out of the 44 who were against it in the beginning. But they tried to make a rustic road so that we could protect the road before the trees were taken down. So that's all been done. My other question is, this is a dead-end road. I mean, it's not, you know, you start here and you end here. You're going to come back out the same way. What's going to happen to Northern Door Road? Northern Door Road, I mean, is probably 16 feet, 18 feet. You're going to have motor homes potentially going down there, making a circle around. I just don't know what the benefit is. And I really don't understand why this is even brought up, because none of the residents that I know of on Isleview has even brought it up to you. So I, like the other 2 gentlemen, don't understand why we're even talking about this right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, back to the board. Frank?
My recollection is that Isleview had several applicants when the program started, and it was discussed and suggested by Mr. Federley when he was here that the rustic road rule for the state was when a road is in the process of being improved or changed or resurfaced or whatever it is, you wait till that's over. So my feeling is that this may be the logical time to bring up Isleview as a heritage road, not a rustic road. And in that context, I think it gives a special nature to it. The Heritage Road Committee had one objective, was to mark the Heritage Road with a Heritage Road sign. And that committee has not been active, and I think that might be something that should be considered. If it's necessary to reconstitute the Heritage Road group and have them review this concept of Isleview being a heritage road, this would give everybody a chance to do it. So I don't know what the proper procedure is in the committee to go ahead, but maybe other comments will help clear that up.
When we resolved last year to put a sort of a moratorium on naming heritage roads in 2013, the purpose for that was so that we would sort of regroup and show off, or come up with a program that would show off those roads. That as part of the long-range plan that the board's been talking about, insofar as making Liberty Grove more of a destination rather than a pass-through, the ability to promote that purpose or means to that end would, or feather in our cap, so to speak, would be heritage roads, whether it be on the website or wherever else we publicize it. And because I had come up with that idea of sort of showing off the roads that we had already designated, I had the dubious distinction of being the chair of the little subcommittee that was going to start to do the history and write the script on the various roads that had already been designated as heritage roads. So that when the time came to publicize those, we'd have substantive material that we'd be able to show. We only talked informally. Nancy was on the committee. Gary, especially from a historical perspective, was on the committee. And then, unfortunately, and I agree with Carl, it's been put in a box, and that box was sort of created by the the, uh, the antagonism, let's put it that way, that had been brewing now for the last couple of months, where discussing that, or enlarging that group to talk about the marketing of the heritage roads that had been designated, would sort of like FDR and Emperor Hirohito having tea the day after Pearl Harbor. It was not going to happen. Not in the climate that had been going on for the last several months. It just didn't seem appropriate for the committee to start discussing that, especially an enlarged committee. I know I had invited Jim Moronic to be on the committee. I had not heard back from him, for example. So we just sort of put that aside. But I think, to your point though, Frank, our being able to proceed with that, whether it's now including new roads as heritage roads, or just focusing on the ones that have already been nominated, in order for us to do that. We had even talked about getting the local poets to even write poetry about, or designated one of the roads that a poet could even write some script or poetry about, or things like that. We have such artistic and literary talent here that we were going to draw on that to be able to do that, to promote the roads. And very honestly, we didn't go any further because of the the climate that had been pervasive in the last couple of months in particular.
Anybody else? You want to make a comment?
The reason that it was brought up at this time was, my recollection is correct. When the petition came in, which is dated in 2010, signed by 54 people to designate Isleview as a rustic road, we were in the midst of deciding on what was going to happen on that road, and it was said, let's just put this aside until the road is finished. I have a file that says, here are these petitions and they would like rustic road, so it's time to bring it back up to you guys to see whether you want to proceed with rustic road or file a road. Because now the road is done.
I've heard, and I agree in part though, a lot of what happened, whether it's a petition for rustic road or the whole Heritage Road program, was in large part a method of being able to preserve trees closer to the roadway. And maybe, as John pointed out, that point is moot now with the fact that the attempt to keep the trees closer to the roadway by designating a rustic road, as per the petition, sort of is moot point now, simply because, the road has been improved. The trees are not as close to the edge of the road as some people would like. And maybe that sentiment from those 50-some odd residents on Isleview would be different now had that petition been circulated now.
Would it make sense to contact those people and see if they are still in favor of that? Are the 56 involved in that actual on Isleview, or are they on?
There's 54 signatures
Or
for
54?
Isleview Road.
And Kelly was instrumental in getting that petition. I think Kelly Mazeski was instrumental in getting those signatures.
But that was for a rustic roads designation.
Right, that's what we're talking about.
Yes, my attitude and opinion would be I would rather see it be under the town program of a heritage road.
There's nothing saying you can't be both.
That's true, that's true. But I think if it's a rustic road, it's gonna get much more publicity than being a heritage road, and I think this is where the people on the road have been suggested should come up with what they want.
I know part of the town's plan for the Heritage Road program is to market it and make
Yeah.
sure that people know about it and showcase them. So I don't think anybody has a conception of naming something a heritage road and hiding it.
No,
Well, I think Lou hit the nail on the head. The attempt was to preserve trees. Much as though is what's going on in Garrett Bay Road. And I think that unfortunately, the Heritage Road program, I think initially, it's my personal observation on this, initially started out as a very viable, good program. I think in the discourse over almost a year and a half, 2 years, there was very little willingness to compromise, I guess is the way is probably the best word to phrase that. And unfortunately, what happened is, I think we have the addendum there that states, as Bud has said, that roads, Heritage Road will be looked at a little bit differently in the maintenance and so forth. I think that's a viable part of our road maintenance policy. Unfortunately, the program itself is basically, as Carl says, been put in a box. But we didn't put it in the box. I think that was done by an unwillingness to compromise on it. And, you know, I've driven down Isle View and I've driven down Garrett Bay, and I will have to say this. Those roads have not been decimated. Not that many trees have been removed, and I know I'm going to get an argument on this. I think as time proceeds, the trees will fill in, and the road will go back to what I think people envision it to have been before. My own personal opinion is I wish the boards before us had taken up Isle View, and we wouldn't have had to go through that. That was put off and put off and put off until the point that on Isle View became the road itself was just disintegrating. And I think anybody along there would agree to that. That brought it to the Highway Committee, and it brought it to the board that we have this fiduciary responsibility to protect our investments. And I know people hate to hear me say that, but we do. And we have to maintain those roads. And if we have to cut some trees in maintaining the roads, we have to cut some trees. I'm not all for cutting trees. We received an email about the Gibraltar adopting this policy. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, holy fright, they're whacking trees a lot farther away from the road than we have done.
And they got an applause.
I mean, I really do think that this whole issue has been so blown out of proportion and has become so personal with some people, and it's just I guess it just kind of amazes me. I just kind of shake my head and I look at Garrett Bay now, and Garrett Bay is basically now in that one section where the most, if you will, controversy has been, is deteriorating. We've got a fiduciary responsibility to go about and fix that road. Mr. Federley, right away, in the one big meeting we had here, said, you know, you have this ordinance, you have the latitude. You don't have to clear cut. You have the latitude. We took the latitude. I mean, we cut the shoulder size down, we cut the clear zone size down. We basically did the same thing on Isle View. And to be constantly in this position, and Carl, I'm sorry, I don't think that road looks terrible anymore. I really don't. And it's gonna fill in. And there was a property owner along there that went in and basically clear cut. That looks a heck of a lot worse than what the town did. But that's my personal opinion. Okay, where would we like to take this?
My form of town government leads me to wish that issues like this would go to committees. And I would love to see this committee, this issue of the rustic road and the heritage road for Isle View, go back to the Heritage Road Subcommittee with their recommendations to the Highway Committee and their recommendations to the board. And I think with the experiences we've had and with the way things have gone, I think this is a marvelous opportunity to heal the situation and move together in concert. And I think we all want the same thing. We want a beautiful community. We want to be safe when we get to where we're going. And this would be my recommendation.
I have to disagree with Frank. I think that's what got us in this mess in the first place. I personally don't feel that we need to rush into anything here tonight. I agree with the statement that maybe some of those 56 people that signed that petition may have changed their minds, and I would see no harm in waiting until some of those people are back and let them know, are you guys still interested? I see no reason to move on this tonight.
I agree with Nancy on this. This petition is 3+ years old. And I think that it needs to be sent back to the group that petitioned to see whether or not they want to really deal with the ramifications of making this a rustic road. And I think there are people on Isle View that maybe are not as in favor now as they were then, based on what John has said.
Yes,
And-
that is correct. Nobody brought it forward.
And if somebody, wants to nominate it and go through the Heritage Road process,
It really wasn't rescinded or.
right,
It
right.
is
I can
official
understand why it was brought
release.
forward, but under the circumstances, I guess I would be more comfortable hearing from them again to see if they're still of the same mind.
Could I send it back to Kelly then and ask her if she, does she want to pursue this at this point?
I think that would be reasonable.
Then it's a closed issue as far as we're concerned.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to table this request until we hear back from Kelly and get the sentiments of the 56 people that basically signed it in the first place.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by Lowry, seconded by Dodge. Roll call, please. So,
Borkert,
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Cavazos,
aye.
Goss,
Aye.
Lowry.
Aye.
Carries 5-0.
Okay. Okay, going on to our next item, the, I think my Zoom just ran out of gas. Consider attending the WTA Wisconsin Town Association district meeting. Bud, yeah.
The district meetings are, you've got a list of them, Friday and Saturday, starting, I guess, February 14th, maybe, or February 1st, earliest one I see on here. And concluding March 15th, I think. At various locations, there's a couple of options if we want to go here, Denmark, or Shawano, or Kimberly, or not a lot of difference there. I guess Denmark is probably the closest one.
And this is for,
The Town Association district meetings that are held yearly. This year will be the orientation for the Board of Review, which will count for certification for Board of Review members, one of which on the Board of Review has to be certified by statute.
and
Who was certified now and how long were their terms, Bud?
I don't have that with me, but I know I am.
I think I am.
I'm probably expired by now.
I'll have to renew it at this.
Did we?
It's on you, bud.
So, how many, well, we have to find out how many people are gonna attend. And the cost is,
$40, I believe, yes, for, unless we register 10 days, less than 10 days before the meeting, that's 45.
well, we've got, the first meeting is 14th, you said, of February? No, February 7th,
Where's the closest one?
Denmark.
Denmark.
Well, why don't we
What's
see
the Denmark date?
February 1st? Why don't we do this?
That's a Saturday.
They're always on Saturday for the most part.
Friday or Saturday.
Yeah.
Just right.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we,
Peter's got
we
his
don't know how
hand.
many are gonna go, but if the board would let, Peter,
I was certified, or whatever you call it. I ordered a CD for $15.
okay.
Went through it and answered all the questions and became certified that way. So I think that option is probably still available.
That would be better than traveling on a Saturday.
Well, that's just the morning session, though. There's other items in the afternoon, which might be of interest to some people, and I looked at an agenda today, but one of the topics is dealing with the affordable health care situation,
Oh,
which I'm sure we want to look at.
Well, how do we? I think that we have, those that want to attend any one of the meetings, let the office know, and we can give I guess we can give a pre-approval.
I've got eye surgery the 20th of January and the 3rd of February, and right now I've been told not to drive for a month. So I'm gonna probably be out of condition for at least up until the end of February. I can't focus because of the problem I have with my glasses, because this eye will be good, this eye will be bad. I have to wear the glasses for this eye, but then this eye can't focus.
So you can't even, they don't want you in a car at all.
They don't want me in a car, I've been told not to go to work. I'll see how I feel about coming to the meetings. I just have to sit in front of the fire with my dog and, you know.
Yeah.
Can I get that surgery, please?
I think we probably all like that.
John, I'd like to go because I found the other subjects very interesting and challenging. But I think it only pays if we could get the carload going.
I'd be going to.
Okay, why don't we just, Janet, you were thinking about going, I think, right? Bud, I know, was thinking of going.
We're gonna go together, I suppose, the first would be the one. If that works out.
That works for first?
As far as I know.
First for you?
Second is February first.
I'm out of town. Well, we've got 4.
I'll do the CD. I don't want to go. I'm sorry.
Missed that great lunch?
Yeah. Trying to quit.
Well, I'll make a motion to authorize, 4 to go, I guess. For a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, consider purchase of budgeted items, the mower and the plasma cutter, and you've got the information on that, in the packet. And if I am correct, these 2 items were approved in the budget? Am I correct, Bud?
Yes. They were explained at the highway committee, and the highway committee moved them up to the board.
Hugh?
Thanks, everyone. It's Hugh Mulliken. Yeah, I hate to see him sort of sound like the broken phonograph here, but I understand, I'm pretty sure what a plasma cut, I understand what a lawnmower is, it cuts the grass. And I talked to Pat Hockers at Link today, and he thought it was a pretty good deal, so I trust his judgment in some things. But Frank, I kind of question what the utility of a plasma cutter would be. Do you think that would be used a lot or not?
I don't think that's an appropriate question to the board at this point in time. Hugh, this is not an exchange.
Well, it just, I just question, John, how much use a tool like a plasma cutter would get. And I'd like to suggest that maybe you compare the town of Liberty Grove to some of the other contractors around here who are in the same business approximately, excavation, find out if they got plasma cutters, and if they do, how much they're used, or maybe you could borrow one. So that's about all I have to say is I wish you'd watch carefully what you spend your money on. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, is there a question, John? Sure. Bud, you want to tell them what a plasma cutter is?
Yes, it's basically a tool for cutting steel that you use instead of a torch. The torch takes oxygen and acetylene and operates at a temperature of 1600 degrees, so you have to get your steel very hot in order to cut it. And it's somewhat difficult to make a nice straight line with a torch because of the area that has to be heated up. It gets just about red hot. And the plasma cutter uses air and electricity, and it cuts at a temperature of 40,000 degrees. So that heat is very instantaneous and hot, and it goes through, it makes it so you can put down a ruler, if you will, and you can draw that and cut that very smooth. And according to what I've been told, within 2 or 3 minutes you can pick that steel up because that heat is so concentrated in that small area. It dissipates very quickly. So that's the basics of what a plasma cutter does.
Bud, maybe you could explain also for the people out there, because it was very informative to me, how it would be used and save money in a short time, pay for itself with regard to the blades on the maintenance, equipment that you have.
Since I sent this out, I did a little more research and had a little more time to work on it. The payback period on this item, which costs $3,250, depending on how often you change your blades on your grader and your plows, can range from a period of, on an expensive and more often usage of your changing of your blades, which you're going to have a lot more of it this year with more snow, can range from anywhere from 1.5 years up to approximately 3 years. What you do with the grader now is when you're grading your road, because of the nature of the road, your blades wear on a convex pattern. What you can do with this unit, you can put your straight edge up there, pull that along, and make a new flat edge for grading, which you need basically for when we're prepping roads for paving. Our grader takes 3 changes a year. If we can knock that down to 1 change a year or less, because of taking that convex pattern off of the blades, would save us quite a bit of money. And grader blades range from $288 down to $165. So the other item, if you use your oxygen and acetylene, you're buying that gas, and the gas is $80 a cylinder approximately now. There was a time when acetylene was put on hold by OSHA because there was an accident, somebody got hurt or killed, and they investigated acetylene, so they put it on hold and it could not be purchased. The other item is the wing on the plows. The wing has a horizontal blade on the bottom, and then there's a blade that goes perpendicular to that to wear on the surface, so that horizontal blade is not cutting into the shoulder, but the vertical blade rather. The horizontal blade comes along and removes your snow, but doesn't do a plowing operation into the ground. That blade, those bottom ones, they'll get changed maybe three times or 4 times a year because they do wear. And that horizontal blade, you're welding the horizontal blade to that vertical blade, and eventually when you're burning off your weld on the bottom of that vertical blade, it gets very rough, and that has to be replaced. So that can be replaced once a year. It might go 2 years. But what you do, it's very hard to weld that horizontal blade on once you start chipping off your old metal, or your old weld. So again, you put your straight edge on the vertical blade, take your plasma cutter and draw that along there. You got a nice smooth surface. Now, you take off approximately 1/4 of an inch. You've got a 6-inch exposed surface on an 8-inch blade to use. So you could have 5 years on that one blade by taking off that 1/4 inch or longer. So, and like I said, the savings, depending on various scenarios, if we get in the bid with I called McPherson in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Their blades are the same quality and less expensive than what we would get straight from, let's say, Fabco for Caterpillar or Monroe for the plows on the truck. So, and depending on your gas savings, how often you change these things, like I said, if there was an aggressive type situation, you could be saving, this could be paying for itself in 1.5 years, and if you have a less drastic winter with a lower cost blade, it could be up to 3 years that you're getting your payback.
Yeah, but the town has on its staff the expertise to do something with an acetylene torch or with a plasma cutter, what would be the option if there wasn't that expertise? What do you do if your blade, whether it's on the grader or on the plow wings, needs to be redone? You have to just buy a new one?
Correct. That's what's happening now with that blade when you peel off that horizontal blade. Eventually you can't weld on it anymore, or you can, but it gets just very not stable. So you just put a new blade on there.
And does the plasma cutter have a life expectancy beyond a year and a half so during which time it would pay for itself? Does it last?
Yes, this would last for 15 years, 20 years probably. It's a very simple tool. Very simple. The size of it is, what did I say? It's 12 by 13 by 30 inches, so it's only about so big.
And you also note that it's versatile enough to be used not just for the grader, for the changes in the grader, and the plow wings, but also in other repairs and building projects as welding, which are now being done with other things like acetylene torches and whatnot?
Correct, yes. And like I say, the plasma cutter is real simple to use. I talked to Art Weberg the other day, and Art is very animated. He said, you just put your straight edge down and away you go. It's just, it's an amazing, clean cut tool. And it also, if you have a welded piece of steel, it will actually pick the weld out of that steel. You can just focus right on that weld and get that cleaned out of that steel in order to do something. John, you were out there to see the guys working on that V-plow now. They're retrofitting one of our old V-plows to put on another truck because a couple years ago they had a problem with some extremely hard snow, and the blades just wouldn't very difficult to move it. So they get in there with the V-plow and open it up. We got one for the grader right now, but then if you're out with the grader, then you lose the guy on the truck. So if you get one that works for the truck, you could have the grader and the truck out there opening up a substantially hard drift.
He resurrected this from the backyard, and it was out in the shop. And in answer to your question, yes, between Joe and well, Brian's probably the only one that's not really adept at a torch.
He's getting there.
He's getting there. These guys are amazing. They were going to take this V-plow and adapt it so it could fit on 3 trucks. And it's used when basically, this is Dick was explaining that to me, it's used when the snow gets very hard and crusted, and it will break through it. But, yeah, they're really capable. The other day, Jay came in the office, and Janice said, "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be on vacation." Well, he'd come in because a weld had broken on one of the, I think it was one of the plows. He was here, welding it back, just in case they had to go out. And, yeah, they do. It's amazing back there.
But to speak to one of the suggestions that you had about renting or borrowing, I'm not a big fan of borrowing equipment. There's just too many possibilities for things to go wrong. But is this something that could possibly be rented, or do you anticipate that it would get so much use that would not be a logical way to go?
Usually what happens is when you need it, you don't have it. And then you have to go run and get it, and if the other person is using it, then you gotta sit and wait.
Mm-hmm.
And and then a lot of times with other equipment that we're done that with, we have to fix their stuff before we can use it. And it's just you spend a lot of time doing stuff like that.
And there was a point you made too, Bud. It says if the blade comes off during a plowing event, that truck is laid up for a major part of the route. So timing is important in that one as well, though. Having one as opposed readily available, it would seem. Do you mean up for the major part of the route? Do you mean the portion of the roads that need to be done would not be able to be done?
Right,
In a timely fashion?
Right, what's happened is that these blades that I'm talking about, they're welded on well, but stuff happens. And there's a truck that's come in with that thing is broken off or been bent down and just can't go with it. So that you come in, well, then you gotta take your torch and cut that thing off, and it takes time to do that. So it can take anywhere from 3.5 to 5 hours to get that peeled off of there and then get a new blade on there and weld it back on, because welding does take time too.
I've got a couple more questions. Back to the mower. Are we keeping the two old ones that are 13 and 14 years old?
We have to, because they're 52-inch, and that's the maximum width we can go into the cemeteries with,
Okay.
between the headstones.
Okay. I guess where I'm going with this is, are you going to be coming back next year for another mower?
Oh, this one, no.
Okay.
Definitely not.
And then the other thing I'm wondering about this mower that we're talking about here, can we, seeing as how we've started talking more and more in finance about capital reserve, this is definitely an item that should be a capital reserve item, because it definitely has a life expectancy, and it is something that we should be saving for instead of, buying it outright. Just something to keep in mind.
Well, we could take it out of capital reserve and use 17,000 for something else.
No, I'm saying,
Just kidding.
I guess what I'm saying is, this is something when it comes around to budget time, that it should be on a line item that for replacement and whatever its life expectancy is, and a little bit of money each year should go towards the replacement, if that's something that's going to be part of our arsenal of maintenance materials.
That's why John wanted the 5-year plan developed
Yeah,
for equipment, so we could look at it.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
I guess this would be the start of it, jumping into it
Yeah.
first.
Right?
For 23 years, I ran a wood, metal, fiberglass, and mechanical shop. The new equipment that's coming along makes our crew much more efficient here. It will pay back itself so fast, it'll make your head swim. And with it, there'll be more things that they can think of to do that will save time. So from a creative viewpoint, we have a staff of 4 guys that know what they're doing. And I think it's got to be done. We have to have a plasma cutter. It's the way they're building ships, the way they're building everything else. And if they're not using them down in the county shop, they should be. Should have been using them a long time ago.
This also cuts stainless and aluminum.
Sure?
We can weld both now, but we can't cut them.
Yeah.
This might be slightly off topic, but I always feel incumbent, it's always incumbent on me, I feel, to respond to emails, and we did get an email, for example, and many people got an email from Carl Madsen about the method of purchases, the way we do things. And I always get a sense from when I read Carl's email that somehow or other the town is not adhering to the proper procedures for the purchases it makes. That is the least offensive implication from what Carl puts in his email. And a little bit more egregious is the idea that maybe there's even some kind of buddy system or old boy system that's really being used to really circumvent how things should be done. And this is this is purchasing. This is obviously 2 purchases that we're considering. Can we just address, for my own sake, and I guess for everybody who's here, Are we doing what we should be doing and how we should be doing it in terms of the way we purchase things?
Sure. Buzz keeps saying we need to advertise this is a public contract of $5,000 to $25,000. That applies to a public works contract. If you have, you're going to build this building or do some dock work, that's a public contract. And according to the town association, it's covered in the statutes. A public contract is defined as a contract for the construction, execution, repair, remodeling, or improvement of any public work or building, or for the furnishing of materials or supplies with a cost greater than $5,000. A public contract does not include service contracts, such as the assessor, architect, snowplow driver, attorney, or building inspector, and does not include equipment such as tractor, grader, truck, et cetera, that we're purchasing. So the statute set it out very clear, and I answered that to Buzz on the last round, and he brought it forward again, so I answered him again today on that. So, and we do compare. We're not just throwing out looking at one item. We do compare other items and take what we feel is best for the town. And that's the reason that equipment is not covered under the public contract thing, because you get such a variation in specifications. You don't just take the lowest item, because the lowest item might not have a steering wheel or something. It'd be not the right thing to do.
Yeah, my previous experience on a village board, that this question came up, and the answer is exactly that. This is not for equipment. You go out for bid when you are doing a major project. And that has been pretty standard procedure in understanding for years, as far as I am concerned.
Well, part of the implication is, though, that even if it's, he didn't say this in his email. He implied that we should be going out for bids regardless, whether it's for equipment or not. But even if it's not required, is he suggesting then, the way I read it, he's suggesting that we should be just sending out these things even for equipment, as opposed to working with people we know and somehow getting a better price, I guess, by kind of just letting these out to bid all the time, as opposed to, you addressed that, but in the last thing you said about when you buy equipment, it's not necessarily just, you're not going to get the equipment you need by just letting it out that way.
You have to really be extremely detailed then in everything that you want for that, and then really look at what you get in for a quote on a machine, because you got to make sure that it's what you want and everything is fairly equal, and then when you go to look at the price.
That all takes a lot of time.
Definitely, yeah. We did that at the school when we were buying either a Bluebird or a what's the other bus that we bought up there? Everything is just detailed down to the nth degree, because buses are they're different. They're different.
It was the same thing with the traffic counter. I'm glad Officer Farley, with his 30 years of experience, was there to say, you don't want this, but you do want this, and you don't take the bottom.
Detail that Chris Hess put in on the fire.
Do a service.
Okay. Decision time.
I move that we purchase the mower and the plasma cutter
I'll
as
second.
budgeted.
I'll second. We've had quite a discussion. Any more discussion on this? All right, motion by Farber, seconded by Lowry. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Operator license. There are none. Correspondence. There are some.
Other than the one from Buzz, the email from Buzz that everybody saw, the January Wisconsin Towns Report. Notice of timber cutting of the Hill Family Trust on Scandia Road. We have part of a section, set up for pulp, section 4, down 31 north, range 28 east. The decision on the Board of Adjustment case, should be on the front page of the advocate, is that all right? Sister Bay Library Commission meeting, oops, that was yesterday.
No, that was canceled because of the weather. It will be next Tuesday at 1 PM, the 21st. That should be on the calendar. I called in to Janice from the account this month.
Notice from the DOT of the quarterly payment, highway aids of $53,718.87. A thank you note to Chief Heck from the Village of Ephraim on the job they did on the fire at the Ephraim Inn. A letter from Marilyn Peterson that was in the Advocate, thanking Nancy Goss for her letter that she put in. Fire Board. September 3rd.
Those are the minutes that you had asked for.
Oh, some minutes?
Yeah, those are the minutes of the fire board. You had mentioned you weren't getting those anymore.
Oh, okay. Scheduling conference is set for February 4th at 10 a.m. regarding rain log crafters versus Town of Liberty Grove. I'll just mention that he was in the other day and left another letter requesting use of his road. The resolution that we had to allow him to use that expired almost 2 years ago, and we've been in litigation with him ever since, so. Our trip money has arrived for ILB Road of $25,041.19. And that's all I have.
If anybody's interested, we get these at the town hall. A lot of information actually comes in these. It comes from the Wisconsin Town Association, obviously. It's kind of good reading at times. Okay, future meetings.
Fire Board, Monday the 20th at 8 a.m. Library the 21st at 1 p.m. There's also a Meet Darcy Pills event at the North Fire Station at 10 o'clock on the 21st. She is the new community coordinator hired by Door North. I don't know if there's anything for the Plan Commission on Wednesday. I don't have anything.
Bud, we really have to meet I don't know if we have to meet as a Plan Commission, but as a board to discuss temporary use and send something down to RPC.
Okay. Did they say when they're gonna reschedule that?
No, but it was scheduled for January 9th and they postponed it, so I'm assuming it's gonna be on their early February agenda.
Okay. And you want to send down a recommendation from the board?
Absolutely.
Is it possible for the board to meet on the 22nd?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
We're here anyway.
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have anything, Becky hasn't gotten back to me yet regarding the Smart Growth County Plan. She said she'd give me a call when she's ready to meet with me and talk about Liberty Grove segueing into that. So unless we have any kind of conditional use or variance.
You want to meet then before or after the Schenck presentation?
Doesn't really matter to me, whatever works.
That starts at 4 o'clock.
Mike Konechny from Schenck and Associates is going to be here on the 22nd, going over the audit that they've done, going over how our town financially compares to other towns. He's got 30-some odd years of doing this sort of thing, so there've been some questions about the fiscal, health of the town. And I think it'll be enlightening to hear what he has to say.
John, will that be a presentation only, or will we be able to, or the?
He's gonna be able to
Answer questions, great.
And that's scheduled for 4:00. Yes.
I'd only like to add on that, I hope as many people as come
Oh,
to
yeah.
it as
Yeah.
possible, because
Please.
I'm gonna be pushing hard for a 5-year budget planning system. It takes into consideration a lot of the things the town has not had that it should have.
Well, this is something we talked about after the vote on the 18th, and I thought it was timely, John, when you said, you know, we need to do something to get more word out there to educate. This is step number one in that is, allowing the public access to Mike Konechny. He really knows his stuff.
In that regard, it just popped into my head. Do you think we could go for a little ad in the Pulse? It announces this meeting and explains what it's for and urging people to come.
Why not?
You get it in my, Friday.
Yeah, put it in the notes too.
Was the notes gonna be sufficient?
It was in notes.
Yeah, yeah.
You probably have to go with the aggregate, because.
Yeah, because the,
Notes, you're not gonna come to this,
the,
you don't need notes for that.
it's, I know, it's the Pulse, the deadline is big.
Friday, noon.
No, the Pulse,
Yeah, it's usually Friday.
right,
noon.
but we're doing this on the 22nd,
Yeah, so it won't be until the following Friday.
but,
You probably get a small border doing the aggregate
yeah,
on Saturday. I think if we
maybe let's do that.
contact them in the morning.
Yeah, let's do that.
So before or
Is it on-
after,
Is it on the website? Yeah, it's on the website, so.
before or after the meeting, 4:00 meeting, is, somebody have to come, we have to come in here 3:15 or 3:30 to meet then before the meeting.
Want to go 3:15?
Sure.
Okay, the next day of the 23rd is mining class all day. Tuesday the 28th, the Niagara Escarpment Committee, 10 o'clock at the Government Center. On the 31st, tax collection from 4 to 6 p.m. here at the hall.
Could you go back to that escarpment center date and time?
The 28th, on Tuesday the 28th, 10 o'clock at the Government Center.
We haven't settled on a room yet.
Okay.
Okay, February 3rd, Monday, Highway Committee, 8 a.m.
Whoops. This is the 3rd of February?
And I would assume on the 4th, Tuesday would be Sister Bay Utilities at 7 a.m. Wednesday the 5th, no board meeting.
This is Bud's idea.
Okay. Tuesday the 11th, the IT meets at 1:30 or 7 o'clock. To be determined. On the 12th, the Plan Commission will meet for the Zellniel variance.
Oh, they're ready for that?
Well, that's what I'm told. The 18th, there will not be a spring primary. Town Board, the 19th. And Door County Parks is meeting here at 6 o'clock on the 20th.
And that's, the purpose of that is to explain tree cutting, right?
We have to do maintenance in the county park. We remove the diseased trees. And because there has been controversy up here, they felt it might be a good idea to hold that meeting up here so that people could be aware of what's gonna happen in the park. Because I guess there's quite a few trees that are gonna come down.
Coupled with that, Public Service, I saw a blurb somewhere here, are doing some line replacement work from Gills Rock to Northport, and they will be doing tree adjustments there. So they were wondering if there was any concerns we had on that. So we might put that on for Highway Committee on the 3rd.
Tree adjustment.
I like that.
Spring election, April 1st, starting at 7 a.m.
You want to explain the mining refresher class? This is always fascinating.
Stuff this time too.
Yes, MSHA, the Mining Safety and Health, or whatever it's called, federal mandate that people that work in non-metallic mining during mining activities, which is defined as blasting and/or crushing, have to go through a safety course once a year, an 8-hour course. And that's why we do it here as a public service, basically, for the contractors that operate non-metallic mines, and some other ones that work in those mines periodically as mechanics or just hauling stuff in and out or whatever. So I think we got, 60 people signed up?
The federal mandate has expanded to plumbers and electricians.
Wow. But just
So the plumber blasted for my holding tank, so I guess it's gotta be,
The plumber didn't blast.
no, I know the
He
plumber.
got a
didn't.
blaster with his license.
Okay. Payment of bills. You have an updated one. Was that on the diet?
Yeah, the clerk report one there for 384.
Yeah. Any questions? Janet, you want to explain the settlements?
There are two times that we have to write checks in the beginning of the year. One is the January 15th settlement, and the other is the February 20th settlement. This is money that comes into our account and immediately leaves. We move, our balances show we have over $2 million in the account at the end of December, but as of the 14th, we don't. We took out $1,900,000. So, it's all the settlements, all the taxing districts for the monies that we took in thus far.
Any rough idea, Janet, how much it is for the school and for the Tech Institute and for the county? I think taxpayers ought to know how much of their money that's in their tax bill goes out for.
Well, the total is on our worksheet. The percentages are on the tax bill.
I know.
I can get it, but, how about if I cover that next month?
Okay.
Looking down at the bottom for undergoing garbage, you'll notice oil, batteries, and tires on there. That's for December.
That's coming off.
On the upcoming bills, those will not be on anymore. It looks like they got rid of a whole bunch of tires before that that deadline. 2,300 pounds of tires there.
And we've got how many more payments left on the platform truck?
One more.
One more. Okay. That's the one the Bay Lake back, right? The 15,000.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions anybody has? If not, I'll move to approve the bills as presented.
Second.
Motion by Lowry, seconded by Dawes. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, Next is, I move that we adjourn to closed session per statute 19.85, parent 1, parent E, deliberating, negotiating the purchase of public properties, investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. This has to do with the lease agreement with the DNR on the Rowley's Bay land.
Second.
Let's have a roll call. Roll call. Seconded by Goss. Roll call.
Cavazos.
Aye.
Lowry.
Yes.
Goss.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Borkert.
Aye.
Carries 5-0.
We'll be back as quick as we can.